All right, so today we're jumping into this really high-stakes legal battle. It's about a guy named Jeremy Bass, a homeowner who's fighting a massive corporate foreclosure. And get this, he's doing it all on his own, using a weapon you would never expect.
So in this explainer, we're going to break down the story of this guy, a self-represented litigant, that means no lawyer, who was facing just impossible odds. And what did he do? He chose a strategy that was, well, frankly, it was explosive, super risky. So could he actually win a legal war by, totally breaking the rules of engagement? We're going to dig into his tactics, the huge risks he took, and what this whole thing really tells us about our justice system when it's just one person against the machine.
All right, let's set the stage here. To really get how wild this case is, you got to understand what a normal foreclosure defense looks like. It's all about procedure, right? You're arguing over paperwork, maybe some errors in the loan servicing, payment records. It's usually a pretty dry, technical fight. Well, Jeremy Bass, he decided to fight on a completely different battlefield.
And at the absolute heart of this case is one single explosive document. It's a sworn affidavit that Bass filed on January 17, 2025. And this one piece of paper, it became the centerpiece of his entire fight. And you're about to see why.
So let's talk about this affidavit. What is it, and why was this one so different? Because believe me, this was not your typical legal filing. Okay, so an affidavit, right? It's a sworn written statement used as evidence in court. Usually they're kind of boring, just the facts. But Bass, he didn't just stick to the facts about the foreclosure. No way. He loaded his up with these incredible provocative allegations aimed squarely at the professional conduct of the opposing lawyer. So you have to wonder, what was the strategy here? Was he just, angry and lashing out? Or was there actually a method to this madness? Let's break down his tactics, because they're pretty fascinating. Okay, first up is a tactic you could call ethical framing. See, instead of just yelling, "Hey, this lawyer's unfair," Bass got really smart. He used the court's own language against them. He talked about an abandonment of professionalism and how the other side was trying to exploit the defendant's lack of counsel. And as Professor Montgomery points out, this was a brilliant move. It grounded his arguments in actual codified standards. It made it sound way more credible than just some guy complaining. Then he went a step further into what was basically psychological warfare. He flipped the script. He suggested the other lawyer's aggression wasn't strength, it was insecurity. He called it a disappointing lack of skill, being used to compensate for other shortcomings. Wow. As Dr. Thornton notes, this was a clear attempt to grab some psychological leverage when he had zero procedural leverage. He was trying to get inside his opponent's head. And this is where things get really wild. This was his high-risk gambit. He starts invoking these gendered ideas of honor, saying the other lawyer had forgotten what it means to be a man. And then he just drops the bomb. "I will not mince words. These actions are criminal." I mean, talk about a high-risk move. But experts like Professor Wong say this was all calculated. He was pushing every single boundary, using language designed to provoke, but crafted just carefully enough to hopefully stay on the right side of the law. So you're probably wondering, how did he not get immediately sanctioned by the court for all this? Well, it came down to some really clever legal footwork. First, he used qualifying words like seems to or perhaps. Second, and this is key, he focused on the conduct, the actions, not the person's character. Third, he backed it up with specific examples from the case record. And finally, he did all this within the procedural legitimacy of a formal affidavit. He used the system's own rules to protect his inflammatory statements. Okay, so Bass has just fired this, massive verbal cannonball into the courtroom. It's full of these wild allegations. The big question is, how did the judge react? What happened next? The court's response, well, it came in a single, tiny, dismissive footnote. After all that fire and fury, the judge basically said, and I'm quoting here, "The court determines there is no basis for these orders, therefore they will not be addressed by the court." That's it. A total shutdown. The door was slammed in his face. But you see, that tiny footnote was saying a lot more than you'd think. Legal experts look at that and see 4 clear messages being sent. 1, you used the wrong process, buddy. 2, a bit of professional courtesy, like we don't like to sanction lawyers in public. 3, a total rejection of his claims, saying they had no merit. And 4, a very clear unspoken warning. Don't you ever try this again.
Which brings us to the big question, right? After all of that, was it worth it? Was this high-risk gambit a win or just a total failure?
Well, when you look at the payoff, it's kind of complicated. Let's look at the balance sheet. On the potential benefits side, he definitely created a strong record for an appeal and for sure applied some psychological pressure. But the costs were huge. He risked completely alienating the judge, he might have shot his own credibility, and honestly, it might have just been a tactical distraction from what really mattered.
And here's the thing. This is so much bigger than just one case. It really gets to the heart of a huge problem. As advocate Elena Martinez puts it, Bass's story shows the impossible choices facing people without lawyers. They're basically forced to choose. Either you stay silent while you feel you're being taken advantage of, or you try these wild, rhetorical Hail Marys that could totally blow up in your face.
And that really brings us to the broader implications. The justice system itself is kind of on trial here. What does this case say about the whole setup?
What Bass's affidavit really does is shine a bright light on a fundamental crack in the system. Let's be honest, the system is designed for parties who have lawyers. So when an ordinary person without counsel tries to play the game, they're at an absolutely massive disadvantage from the get-go.
And think about this. Even with all these ethical rules that are supposed to keep things fair, what good are they if you don't have the key to unlock them? If you don't know the proper channels to make a complaint, the rules are basically useless. Bass tried to forge his own key, and the system just shut him down.
And that's the final question this case leaves us with. It's a tough one. When the fight isn't fair, what does justice really mean? This whole thing isn't just about Jeremy Bass and his house. It forces us to ask if justice is something that's truly available to everyone, or is it just for the people who can afford to play the game?